Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks from Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, burly adopter on Mastodon, and those are the only social media that I have now. You all saw the news about Tucker Carlson's show moving to Twitter, and that's it. I'm done with Twitter. So I won't bother putting out my Twitter handle because I'm not going to be looking at anything on that site ever again. But before we get into the show, we do have a bunch of interesting topics tonight. We will be talking a little bit later on about the writer's strike and how it affects some nerd properties. We're not going to get into all of the different pieces of entertainment that it's affecting, particularly nerd entertainment, but we'll talk about some of them. We also aren't going to get, or I'm not going to get that deep into, what's going on, what are the demands on, the Writers Guild of America's side, what's the Producers Association's response to those. We'd be here all night. There's an excellent breakdown of the highlights of those elements on the YouTube channel Dan Murrell, Murell, who is a movie reviewer, commentator, and so on. And that's 41 minutes long, the highlights. So yeah, forgive me if I don't go into depth, and forgive me if I cough. It's spring, allergy season is here. Let's take some of this. Just water, folks. Which is kind of too bad, but oh well. So, before we do actually get into any of the topics, no, actually, let's jump right into the topics. I forgot. We don't do the Twitch promo anymore because we're only streaming here on YouTube. So, anyway, let's jump right into topic number one. And this sort of came out of left field for, I think, everybody. That is the news that original creator of Babylon 5, and pictured here is, of course, many of the important people of Babylon 5, J. Michael Straczynski, announced on Twitter that there is a Babylon 5 animated movie, I guess, in the works. Although he says in that Twitter post that it is already finished and in the can. But it doesn't have a title. It doesn't have a release date. My guess is his interpretation of finished and in the can means that the animation is done. And maybe the voiceover work still needs to be done, and there might be negotiations with original cast members or whatever's going on. And in his tweet and in anything else I've read, they make no mention of whether or not any of the original show cast members are coming back to do the voices of their characters. But he said it is, quote, classic B5, raucous, heartfelt, nonstop, a ton of fun through time and space, and a love letter to the fans. Then movie title, release date, and other details coming 1 week from today, which was last Wednesday. So tomorrow, in theory, we should get an awful lot more information about what this is all about. I'm curious. I was a fan of Babylon 5. I wasn't like a super fan, but I watched a number of seasons and I enjoyed it. And it would be great to see who is in the cast, what the story is. This doesn't even have any information about the animation studio, although he does say it's coming from Warner Brothers Animation. That doesn't necessarily mean that their animators did it. But we'll have to see. Let's hope that he does produce more information tomorrow, that we find out more about the story. We get some actual, images from the animated movie itself. We get a title and a release date. If it's already done and in the can in the traditional sense, that means it's in the can, means it's ready to be shipped out to distributors in the old, Hollywood way of doing things. Literally put movies in a can and put them on buses and ship them out to theaters all around the country. Which means that everything would have to be done. Everything. Voice work and music and so on. His use of the term in the can may not be that old-fashioned. So, I don't know. Again, hopefully tomorrow we'll see. But if you're a Babylon 5 fan, this could be really good news. And if Straczynski is involved as deeply as it seems like he is, that's definitely good news. He's gone on to write Sense8, the Netflix series, the Angelina Jolie movie Changeling, wrote the story for the first Thor movie, wrote Ninja Assassin, wrote the story for World War Z, and tons of comic work for both DC and Marvel. He's a really well-known writer, not just for having created Babylon 5. So fingers crossed we get some more information tomorrow. Stay tuned. If there is, we'll certainly put it in next week's show. All right, our next topic is, this is a meeting I didn't know I needed to have happen until I saw that it did. Loki and Luke are getting together and making a Stephen King movie. Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill will be starring in the new adaptation of, as far as I know, the only adaptation of Stephen King's story, The Life of Chuck, which was in his 2020 collection of short stories called If It Bleeds. The Life of Chuck is apparently 3 separate stories linked together to tell the biography of Charles Krantz in reverse. From his end to his childhood, but working backwards. And I don't know that I want to say what this Deadline article says. Maybe because it works backwards, you find out right out of the gate exactly how he ended. But, if not, why put that out here as a spoiler? It would be a spoiler because this is a story that's only been out for 3 years. Or at least in publication. So, working on this, directing it is going to be Mike Flanagan, who is kind of Stephen King's go-to guy these days. He did Dr. Sleep, and King was so impressed with his work that he has been given kind of keys to the kingdom for all kinds of adaptation, including the upcoming series based on, I think he's a producer in the series based on the incidences in It. Although the It filmmakers are the ones that are actually, the showrunners on that. But yeah, he's definitely King's go-to guy. We've talked about it. I can't remember which one it was. We talked about him getting rights to something else that King did recently. So this has the potential to be pretty good. I'm not really sure about the story. The fact that it's told in reverse doesn't necessarily imply that there's any kind of what we would generally need to see as something, to qualify it as a nerd story, something supernatural. But it's a Stephen King story. Even his sort of most traditional stories, like Stand By Me, have hints of supernatural elements to it, although there is nothing supernatural in Stand By Me. But, he almost can't write a story or a novel that doesn't touch on that. Even if the adaptation doesn't. There were hints in the book Cujo about sort of more supernatural things going on, mainly because it takes place in was it Derry? Or Castle Rock? I can't remember. Either way, those 2 towns are trouble. But the movie made it sort of a lot more like just a rabid dog attacks a car. But anyway. So yeah, looking forward to this. I think they have here an actual release or planned release date on this. Nope, I don't see it here. Okay, that must have been one of the other stories that we're going to be talking about. So yeah, we'll let you know more about it as we find out more about it. But Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill together at last. Yes, please. Very much looking forward to it. Even if the implication of the way the story is set up is they probably actually won't be together. It sounds an awful lot like they won't be in the same segments of the story. And if it is Hamill as the older version, well, I don't. That doesn't make any sense because the character dies according to what this is, at an age that would be more appropriate for Hiddleston. So I'm not really sure who Mark Hamill plays because I haven't read the story. But anyway, we'll let you know more about it as we find out more about it. Moving on, this has been a rumor for about a week now, but it just got confirmed by Warner Brothers in the last day or two. And that is that person right there in the middle, Jenna Ortega, is going to be one of the stars in the upcoming Beetlejuice sequel being made by Tim Burton. Warner Brothers confirmed that just the other day after the rumors got out there that it was going to be happening. Burton is going to be directing. Michael Keaton will be coming back as Beetlejuice. Winona Ryder will be coming back as Lydia. Jenna Ortega is going to be playing Lydia's daughter. No name for the character yet. They also announced that Justin Theroux is going to be in the movie. And they don't say what character he's playing, whether it's going to be a new character. He looks enough like some version of young Alec Baldwin that I think they might try to do a sort of a time travel thing there. Or he could be a completely new character. They just don't want to mention it. This is the one that has a release date, September 6th, 2024. Production is set to start tomorrow in the UK, which means either it's already written, and we'll be getting to some of that stuff in the writer's strike pieces coming up, or as a director, Burton is not, and if Burton is writing it, is not a member of the Writers Guild of America. Because if he were to continue to be writing it and was a member of the Writers Guild of America, he would be violating his union agreement and would be booted from the Writers Guild. And they've made it very clear that anybody who does anything like that will not just be booted, they will be banned forever. You will never be able to be a member of the Writers Guild, which means essentially you'd never be able to write anything for Hollywood ever again. So I'm not really sure how they are going to just start production again, unless everything is already written or Burton has no association whatsoever with the Writers Guild of America, which is possible. All right, so that said, now let's start talking about some of those strike things. And again, we can't get into all of them. But one of them is, this is of course from Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, the Amazon series. The news is that they have been filming season 2 for a while, and they say that they will finish season 2 without having the showrunners on the set. And those showrunners are executive producers J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. So this gets into one of the very interesting concerns that the Writers Guild has with their previous contract, which has been in place since the last work stoppage, which was 15 years ago, at the very beginning of what they called then new media, digital media, essentially. And that is the rise of what are called showrunners. Showrunners in mostly streaming services, although there are some in broadcast. What's her name? Shonda Rhimes. I think Vonda McIntyre, the writer. Shonda Rhimes is what you would typically call a showrunner. And that is a person who is a primary writer on the show, but also the executive or one of the executive producers of the show. So they essentially control everything about the production and the story and the content of the show, including oftentimes having at least an input, if not the final decision, on individual show directors or individual episode directors. Obviously, final edits and things like that. So you now have somebody who is probably a member of the Writers Guild, and clearly these two showrunners, Payne and McKay, are, because they are not working. They're honoring the Writers Guild strike, but are doing production duties as a producer. And Amazon, and we'll find out in a second, Disney has also said very clearly that they expect anybody who has anything other than just straight up writing roles. They say, we will respect, of course, writers, and the strike and so on. But if you have other duties in the show, in this case, they were clearly talking about showrunners, executive producers, then you are expected to fulfill those duties under the penalty of probably being fired or sued for breach of contract. Disney said an almost identical statement about people on their shows. So one of the reasons that shows like Rings of Power, which is being filmed in the UK, the Beetlejuice movie, which is apparently being filmed in the UK, Andor season 2, which Tony Gilroy said he wrote the last episode script just before the writer's strike was called, finished it just before, but has also said he will continue to be working as the showrunner, which I think is in violation of his position as a member of the Writers Guild of America, but also is what Disney has told him he has to do so that Andor season 2 will get finished. The reason that he is able to do this where other shows have not, and we'll talk about some of those where, like, Daredevil has been shut down in its production, is that the Writers Guild has a very interesting strategy this time around. According to I think it's the National Labor Relations Board, anytime there is a labor work stoppage, a strike, if two members of the striking organization get together anywhere with signs and start protesting, that's a picket line. It just needs to be two. And so what they are apparently doing is sending people to places where they know shows are being filmed, either studio lots in Hollywood. In the case of Daredevil, which we'll get to that. As a matter of fact, I might as well bring that image up here since we're talking about that. To a facility or a location in New York City, and they start picketing. All of the other unionized workers in any other trade can't cross that picket line. I mean, they can. They'd probably be booted out of their unions. So the production can't go on. The Teamsters, the special effects people, the stunt people, anybody who's in a union will not be crossing the picket line. Luminous, welcome to the show. I hope the strike ends well. I do as well. You know what? Before I can, let me put this out there. I am 100% on the side of the Writers Guild because producers are the people who hire the writers. So therefore they are management. And management never, ever, ever, ever is in favor of what is best for the people they hire. Ever. So, sure, there are plenty of excellent producers out there who do fantastic work. The Producers Association, International something of Television and Motion Picture Producers, IPTMP or something like that. As a whole, as an organization, which is the negotiating arm, absolutely do not. And again, I'm not going to get into the details, but there are some requests from the Writers Guild that are, in my mind, just not workable. But that means they need to be a starting point to creating something that is, as opposed to some of the more, I would think, out there requests from the Writers Guild have literally just had no response, no counteroffer from the producers whatsoever. They would just put out a statement about how stupid it is. So let's get that out there. I 100% support the Writers Guild of America, and I want the writers to get as much of their initial requests as possible, because they aren't getting paid for streaming stuff like they were getting paid for broadcast stuff. And that's because those things don't fall under the previous agreement in the way that broadcast work does. And the producers have taken advantage of that 100%. Absolutely 100%. To cut costs, to cut corners, to essentially turn writers into Uber drivers. A gig economy workforce instead of a hired, valued group of people. Saturday Night Live, when every season they hire writers, and they're the writers for at least that season, most cases, many, many, many seasons. But then you get, other shows, particularly the streaming shows, where they hire just the minimum number of writers they can to create, the first couple of episodes to see whether or not they get the reaction. Then they hire either those writers again or different writers, completely different writers. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get into this, so I'm not going to get into this any more depth. Anyway, so having said that, getting back to the work stoppage and the way the Writers Guild of America is doing a very intelligent strike operation, all you need is 2 people in the WGA with picket signs out in front of anywhere somebody is filming, and they shut that thing down for the day. Well, here's a great example, in fact, of producers who are also writers who are doing the right thing. The Duffer Brothers have shut down production on Stranger Things completely, and said, basically, what's the quote here? Writing does not stop when filming begins. While we're excited to start production with our amazing cast and crew, it is not possible during this strike. We hope a fair deal is reached soon so we can all get back to work. Until then, over and out. And then this is obviously a Twitter statement, hashtag WGA strong. Yes, they are the writers, the primary writers certainly, and the showrunners of Stranger Things, but they are also the producers. My guess is they hold both hats. They have memberships in both guilds. And their allegiance clearly is to the Writers Guild. And I think that's fantastic. So, like I said, individually, there are producers out there who are doing the right thing. Collectively, the producers' organization as a whole is dedicated to the idea that writers will get paid the littlest amount of possible that they can possibly get away with. Lumina said, I just heard about mini rooms yesterday and how bad a deal they are for writers. That's kind of what I started talking about with how streaming services hire just like the minimum mini rooms of writers to get a couple of episodes out to gauge what the reaction is for the upcoming season. And that determines whether those writers stay on, whether other writers come in, how many more writers they hire, if any more. That's the mini room concept. And it's a gig economy. It is literally, I'm writing for this episode and I'm going to get paid for this episode, as opposed to getting paid residuals for the entire series once it hits some sort of other syndication, which is what the deal is for anything on TV. On TV, you get hired as a writer for a season. And if anything in that season gets residuals or gets syndicated, you get residuals for anything in that season. So, yeah. Anyway. So, Stranger Things is out. Blade has been shut down. The movie Blade, because of striking at where it's filming. getting back to the whole reason why Andor is still continuing, aside from the decision by Tony Gilroy to not necessarily honor, but then again, Tony Gilroy is British and he may not be a member of the Writers Guild of America, and it's being filmed in the UK. So there's nobody doing what they did to Daredevil, to Blade, two people showing up and striking, because it's the Writers Guild of America, not the Writers Guild of the UK. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Hedge Knight, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the spin-off series is on hiatus right now. According to George R.R. Martin, it has, quote, has closed for the duration of the strike, as their writing team has hit the picket lines. Blade, they say, is the only movie to be formally delayed thus far. The pre-production work has been halted due to the writer's strike. We already mentioned Daredevil Born Again. What else? And Stranger Things. Wonder Man has been picketed, but pardon me again. But apparently it has not shut down yet. Either the pickets have not found the right location, or for whatever reason. I guarantee if they did find the right location, the workers on that production would have stopped workage because they wouldn't cross the picket line. And that's the only ones that I've, seen of nerd content that, are worth mentioning. House of the Dragon 2 is continuing. Again, British everything. British showrunners, British cast, British crew. So they are, even though it's, an American company, HBO and HBO Max, it's all British production, and therefore there's nobody that's striking to stop the work. Anyway, that's enough about the strike. Let's get a napkin here so I can, potentially wipe up the drool. Talk about the Dune 2 trailer. That image right there is Austin Butler, who looks 100% like if his character in Elvis was made by the Prometheus engineers. Just a fantastic look for his character, Feyd Harkonnen. Feyd is a not minor, but secondary, but very important character in the book. And the production designers, the makeup artists, everybody did a fantastic job making him look, because he is a cousin to Beast Urban, to Dave Bautista's character, and a nephew to, a different nephew to the Baron Harkonnen. They made him look like a fit gladiator, which is what he is, version of Beast Urban. Go with the shaved head. I don't have shaved eyebrows. I just have very thin eyebrows. But yeah, shave the eyebrows, everything. That's a creepy looking Feyd Rautha, and I like it. I thought Sting did a good job in the 1980s movie. This is more like what I envisioned Feyd Rautha to look like. They show us finally Florence Pugh's Princess Irulan, and I really like that design as well. It's very simplistic. The only thing that you could say looks regal or imperial about at least the few outfits, or the one outfit that we show her in, is a sort of like gold chainmail coif that she's wearing. Other than that, it's like a fairly almost summery, like simple, sort of translucent white top. She looks like, and again, this is from the book, she looks like the scholar that Irulan is. In the books, Irulan certainly is a princess and understands her importance in, the imperial, the running of the empire. But she is at her heart a scholar. And I think they do a great job of capturing that look for Irulan here. Léa Seydoux as Lady Margot Fenring. looks great. I'm not sure that there's anything to say about that, except that we really get the fact that it has been rumored and seems to be true that her role is significantly enhanced from the book. In the book, she has something reasonably important to do, but it happens off screen, and she's more there as sort of, look at this lady, isn't she interesting? And then, oh, by the way, her husband, Count Casimir, boy, is he interesting. And then it's like, okay, we kind of find out why he's interesting, but again, it's like a very, very minor character. We don't know who's playing Count Casimir Fenring, if he is in the show, if he's in the movie. We do know that Tim Blake Nelson has been cast in a role that has not been named. And I think that would be very interesting. Particularly if they take that character and do some different things, slightly different things. If they're making Lady Margot's role more important, they might also make Count Casimir's role more important. And I think that would be very interesting. We get to see Paul on his first worm ride, and it's as spectacular as you want it to be, as I want it to be. It's absolutely fantastic. We don't get to see Christopher Walken as the Emperor, which is kind of sad. I'm sure they're saving that for another trailer. And there is no mention whatsoever in the IMDb listing, any other thing that I've read, whether or not Saint Alia is even in this movie. I would understand why not. I would be disappointed if she's not in it, but it's really, really tough thing to do if you know the book. If you don't, I'm not going to tell you about it. Again, I don't want to do any sort of spoilers. I'm not going to tell you why Count Casimir Fenring is interesting. I'm not going to tell you, why Lady Margot is interesting. They're very interesting characters. But you get to see, obviously, like I said, Lady Margot, Lea Seydoux, Princess Irulan, Florence Pugh, and you get to see Paul riding the worm. It's fantastic. I think you also get to see, I think it's Jessica, taking the waters of life, which, well, okay, I won't get into that. Again, that would be kind of spoilery. But it's a very important scene in the book and sets up some very interesting things that, happen, further on. So yeah, I'm very excited for this. I can't wait to find out more about it. I can't wait until November, blah, blah, blah. November something, when it comes out. November 3rd. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about this. If you are a Dune fan, watch the trailer. If you like the movie, watch the trailer. It's not going to give away anything major at all. You get to see the exciting thing of Paul riding a worm, and if you didn't know that happens, well, that's kind of been spoiled for you. But if you didn't know that happens, you didn't see the first movie or the miniseries or, know anything about Dune. So check it out, folks. It's fantastic. I can't wait. Cannot wait. It is cementing in my mind that Denis Villeneuve is the best director, writer, director, movie filmmaker for nerd content, smart nerd content currently existing. I've said that about other people, and they've turned out to be terrible, terrible people, and I really, really don't want that to happen with Denis Villeneuve. So, knock wood. But, give him everything. If there's a big, big property that's a challenge to make, God, I wish he had made the Foundation series. Damn it. Oh, that would have been so good. But yeah, give him everything. Please let Denis Villeneuve make every science fiction, fantasy, I'd love to see him tackle a high fantasy that hasn't been done yet. That would be amazing. But we do know he's doing Dune. We do know it's coming out November 3rd. We do know there's a trailer out there, so check it out, folks. And with that, it's a fairly short subject week, so we're done with the show. I will end with a couple of promos, one that has a screen to support it right there on your screens is our URL for our Patreon account, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Lumina says there is a Meg 2 trailer, but the first Meg was disappointing. Yeah, I didn't. We had a review up for Meg 2, and our reviewer even thought it was pretty terribly cheesy. I didn't watch it. I have no intention of watching it. It's not on my radar. If somebody else on the team had put it up there, I would have talked about it, either if they had joined us or just for them if they couldn't join us. Nobody put it in the listing, so who cares? Even as much as a Jason Statham fan as I am, that is not enough to get me to watch either of the Meg movies. But getting back to that, if you are interested, please do follow us on patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Consider being a patron. $2 for the first tier. There's just 3 tiers. And all of those funds will help us go cover other cons and get more content. I don't have a graphic to throw up here yet, but we just a couple of weeks ago, I don't know why we didn't do this before, also created, for those people who don't want the commitment of a Patreon, we have a Ko-Fi. Like everything, it's /nerdcaliber, so it's ko-fi.com/nerdcaliber. If you like our work, you saw something that you particularly liked, and you don't want to do a super chat on YouTube or whatever other, feel free to go there and give us a couple of bucks, give us $5, whatever. We love the tips. Since it's been up there a couple of weeks, we've already made a little bit from people who've been tipping us. So thank you very much for you people out there who have taken to that and decided to tip us for the stuff that we do. But yeah, ko-fi.com/nerdcaliber. So with that said, we'll see you at an upcoming show. We'll see you either at the next show. We'll see you at an upcoming convention. Right now, I don't know which convention is going to be my next one. I'm thinking it's going to be PortCon Maine, 3rd weekend in Maine, I think. But I'm not entirely sure. There's a whole bunch of stuff juggling in the air for that. After that, probably Kineticon. Probably a day or two for Terrificon. Most of the stuff will be day tripping, so I'm not going to go for all days for everything. But the next one for sure that I'll be at all the time is Fan Expo Boston, the first weekend in August, of course, in Boston at the BCEC. So we'll see you at one of those shows. We'll see you at some other thing coming up. We will definitely see some of you at the next show next Tuesday. Stay safe out there, folks. Enjoy the warmer weather. This week is going to be so good. And good night.